about that we learned yesterday. We've some of you guys already know it, but we've kind of cleaned up the bow area to make it a little bit simpler so things don't get tangled up. We put a blue mark on the mast so Ivan knows exactly where to put the height of the pole. There's also marks on the topping lift which are going to be helpful for Renee. We've added slack to the purchase for the up and down of the pole, so now it's easier to cleat. So as soon as the jibe is made, Ivan, and he says made, you got to bring it back down to the blue mark, and then jump the topping lift for Renee. Because if that angle, like we talked about yesterday, if that pole is down, that angle is so acute, there's nothing she can do. Even if, you know, you have to put it on a winch. We also talked about easing out a little bit of the guy and the jibe, so hopefully it'll come out of the jaws. Because again, that's just such a bad angle. And hopefully with those things, I mentioned to Tom about taping up the shackles too, so that way maybe they don't come off the clew. And then I think we're going to just keep doing the same maneuvers. As you know, if you keep on with this boat, eventually if you're doing these buoy races, you'd actually switch the jib from sides coming into that leeward mark, but that would be something in the future to worry about. But I think overall, you know, those are the kind of areas where we're going to be able to improve a little bit. You saw yesterday that we did fairly well, and we probably left at least a minute on the course or more, probably closer to 2 or 3 minutes on the course. And we can fix that just by doing a little bit better maneuvers. Sometimes when, from a tactician's point of view, I try to avoid maneuvers so that we reduce the possibilities of things going wrong. Like an example, accidentally yesterday, the jib sheet came out, right? And that was just you know, we thought somebody had it, right? And so to avoid those situations from happening or breaking a sail and things like that, we might prefer to do less tacks, you know, and avoid potential situations. So if you're wondering why sometimes we do one tack, that's one of the reasons. The other reason is every time the boat tacks, we slow down, not by fault of our own, but just because that's the way boats are. So if we can avoid those tacks and we're racing a race on time, we can reduce the amount of time that we lose to a faster boat, like the Precepts, for example, by not doing as many tacks. Especially if they round the leeward mark and do one tack and in, we want to do the same to try to reduce that delta at the weather mark or at the finish. So that's why some of those tactical calls are going to be to do less maneuvers. I think that for sure we're a lot better off sailing with a symmetrical spinnaker than an asymmetrical spinnaker, because we can go dead downwind and, you know, sail a lot less distance, so that's helping us in our rating. And I think today, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a lot more tired than I was yesterday, and I didn't move, you know, I didn't do anything really, just talk. But maybe it's just exhausting to talk. And the other one is, when I do talk to other boats, we have to make sure we keep on our boat. Okay, so Crystal might take over at that point and just kind of keep us going in our maneuver, because a lot of the times there's a lot of bullshit in that talking that I'm going to be doing to the other boat, just because I know most of those guys, first of all, and secondly, it's kind of fun. But you know, and that's enough to they lost, you know, that gained points on them because of their time, you know. So there's a little bit of extra besides the sailing that goes on, where we can gain some time and do better in the result. But the main thing is for you guys to keep sailing the boat. What else? Wind-wise, so today no clouds, right? Wind's filling in, probably pick up nicely. Wind's a lot further right than it was yesterday. We could be in between transition zones because there's an easterly blowing and you know, in the East County. And I think that flag at that building actually is flying towards us, you know, on the bank building over, it's flying towards us. So there's an easterly right there. The planes haven't switched direction yet, but the planes in TJ were landing to the east. So we could be in this transition zone, could slide out. The issue with sailing here today is that the further right you go, the more right the breeze is. But it's not as windy as farther offshore. So you could sail in more breeze, but be potentially headed on the way back in. So that's the balance. Like today, if we were gonna race right now, I would say that we would start and try to go straight on starboard as long as possible to make sure we're in the max pressure before we tacked. But other guys might be in here and tack and have a really high angle but not be going as fast. So those are just some of the things we're gonna need to worry about today. Does anybody else have anything to add in regards to kind of things that we can try to improve? No?
Well, I mean, yesterday in the second race, I mean, I kind of said the same thing last night too. So that we the last two upwind legs we didn't lay the mark, so we had to do 2 tacks just before the mark.
Yep.
And that messed up. Well, I think it just kind of screwed up a little bit of spinnaker set. It's adding more commotion to the this whole process. So when you speak about like just doing 1 tack, right? But if you go short, then you'll be approaching the mark on port.
Yep.
And that kind of guarantees that there will be a
Okay,
tack just before the mark.
right. So that's another thing that goes into the tactics, is deciding how far do we go? Because if we come in on the port ley line and tack around that weather mark, we have no time to get the pole set up or get anything set up. So how much time do we need on starboard? Maybe we need 10 boat lengths, you know?
Maybe like 5, 6.
Okay. Well,
I think 10.
okay. Probably more like 10 or more. So very important to realize that, and you know that limits our options. But we also at some point,
The reason I say 10 is it doesn't. I mean, if you're gonna have to do, you have to do an odd number of tacks, whether it's 1, 3, or 5. You might as well. You don't gain anything by making the last tack
Just before.
4 boat lengths ahead when you could do it 20 boat lengths ahead and it's the same number of tacks.
yeah, and I don't know if you guys realize, but at one point when we tacked early, we were coming up to the mark, we weren't laying the mark, and all of a sudden the wind went to like 312, and we were just about to lay the mark, and we caught right up to the Melges 32 to the point that we had to tuck and duck that guy. Okay, so that was a huge gain, and it's actually, I was like, oh man, this is gonna be hard, because we kept making less and less time on starboard for ourselves to prepare for the mark rounding. So yeah, that does go into account. But Precepts also gained on us by rounding the leeward mark, going a little ways, and tacking early, so they were always on the wind. And if we're overstood, he's closing that gap, and we're losing time. So it's a very delicate balance. So,
Stuff.
yeah, that's all I got. Let's
Sail clean, sail fast.
yeah, and have fun.